Welcome back to my channel. Here's the story of the day. They say success changes people, but I never thought it would change him. I remember the day he held my hands, eyes burning with determination. Olivia, everything we build together. I'll never forget what you've done for me. His words had been a vow, a sacred promise between two people struggling toward a shared dream. But promises are easy to make, and even easier to break. Years later, as I stood in the cold courtroom, watching him sit beside her, his new bride, young, beautiful, untouched by the years of sacrifice I had endured, I realized something. I had spent my life helping him build his empire, and now he expected me to walk away from it with nothing but a broken heart. David thought he had won. He thought I would crumble. He had no idea who he was dealing with. I met David when we were both struggling to make ends meet. He was ambitious but broke, full of dreams but short on resources. I believed in him more than he believed in himself. I worked double shifts, took out loans, and poured my energy into his business, all while managing our tiny apartment and making sacrifices he barely noticed. When his first deal went through, we celebrated with a cheap bottle of wine. "I'll never forget this, Olivia," he had promised, his hands wrapped around mine. "Everything we build together." 4 years, we did build together. His small venture turned into a company, then an empire. I handled the finances, the legal battles, the sleepless nights, and in return, I had his love, or so I thought. Then came her. She was young, vibrant, a model he met at some high-profile event. At first, it was just the late nights, the unexplained business trips, the way he started dressing differently. Then it was the perfume I didn't wear, lingering on his shirts. The credit card charges for expensive gifts I never received. I confronted him one evening, my voice trembling with a mix of rage and heartbreak. "David, tell me the truth. Is there someone else?" His sigh was heavy. "Olivia, I think we should separate." I felt the world tilt beneath me. "Separate," I echoed, as if saying it aloud would make it less real. "After everything?" "It's not about that," he said, avoiding my eyes. "We've just grown apart." We hadn't grown apart, he had outgrown me. Or at least, he thought he had. At first, I crumbled. Then I burned. Because while David had power, I had something more dangerous. Knowledge. I knew every detail of his business, every deal he had made, and every corner he had cut. While he had been busy chasing youth, I had been quietly securing my own future, ensuring that if he ever betrayed me, he would lose more than just a marriage. The divorce proceedings were brutal. He expected me to walk away with nothing but my broken heart. Instead, I walked away with half of his empire and the satisfaction of watching his young wife realize that she, too, was replaceable. After the divorce, David remained oblivious to the storm brewing around him. He continued his lavish lifestyle with his new wife, parading her around at galas and business functions. But he had underestimated me. He had assumed I would disappear quietly, lost in despair. Instead, I made my moves in the shadows. I used my knowledge of his business dealings to expose the corruption buried deep within his company. Anonymous tips were sent to financial regulators, journalists, and law enforcement agencies. One by one, his fraudulent activities surfaced. Tax evasion, manipulated stock reports, and misappropriation of investor funds. The media swarmed. News outlets ran headlines. David Carter's empire under investigation. Investors panicked, stocks plummeted, and board members resigned. The empire he had built with my sacrifices was collapsing. And then came the final blow. A press conference was called. I watched from the sidelines as David stood behind a podium, attempting to calm the storm. Cameras flashed, reporters threw out questions. His once confident posture was now a mask of barely concealed desperation. And then mid-speech, federal agents walked in. The crowd gasped as 2 officers approached the stage. David Carter, You are under arrest for financial fraud and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent." His face drained of color. He opened his mouth as if to argue, but no words came. In front of the world, in front of his young wife, who took a cautious step back, already weighing her escape, he was handcuffed and led away. It was over. Years passed. The name David Carter became synonymous with scandal. His young wife left him as soon as the money dried up, and the friends who once flocked around him disappeared like shadows in the night. As for me, I thrived. I became a respected name in business, my wealth growing beyond what I had ever imagined. I had love again, too, not the desperate, self-sacrificing love I had given David, but a love built on mutual respect and admiration. One evening, as I walked through a gala hosted by my company, a familiar face caught my eye. David stood near the bar alone, his once confident posture now weighed down by the burdens of his downfall. He saw me, and for a moment I wondered if he would approach me. Apologize, perhaps. But he didn't. He only nodded, a silent acknowledgement of what we had been and what he had lost. And as I turned away, I realized something profound. I no longer needed closure. I had already won. I had spent years helping David build his dream, thinking it was ours. But in the end, I built something even greater, a future without him. Looking back, I have no regrets. Every hardship, every betrayal, and every tear shed only made me stronger. David thought he was trading me in for a better life, but in the end, I was the one who truly won. I built something of my own, a legacy untied to his name. Now, I use my experience to help other women who find themselves in similar situations. I mentor, I invest in female-owned businesses, and I speak at conferences about the importance of securing one's future. I am no longer just David's ex-wife. I am a success story of my own making. And as for David, he became nothing more than a cautionary tale. What are your thoughts on Olivia's journey? Do you believe karma played its part, or was it all just a result of her own strength and resilience? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your perspective.